back to the Holy Hardwood with Pat and Tony, where your New Orleans Pelicans lose their fourth straight game, 101 to 104 to the Houston Rockets.
Well, Tony, good evening, my friend. Like you said, um, our Pels are coming off their fourth straight loss now. Um, Seems like things have, been up and down over these last four games, and they're working through a number of different issues. But um, it seemed like a lot of those issues last night were, um, not resolved, but we got a better version in that first half and saw a couple promising things. But some of those same issues we have been facing for the duration of this year kind of creeped up and showed their ugly heads. Especially in that fourth quarter. So
No doubt about it, Pat. You know, I kind of think there's a few things that we'll get into during this podcast on kind of where I saw the game be lost at. But I'm just going to go right in and kind of go over some of the stats by the players and some of the team stats. And from there, then we can kind of dive into kind of all the other stuff from last night.
okay, sounds
Brandon
good.
Ingram had 31 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on 11 of 24 from the field, 3 of 11 from three, and 6 of 9 from the free throw line. Zion Williamson had 24 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 8 of 16 from the field, and 8 of 11 from the free throw line. Jonas Valanciunas had 15 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists on 7 of 12. Dyson Daniels had 10 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 of 6 from the field, while also logging 40 minutes. Jordan Hawkins had 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 assist on 3 of 8 from three, 4 of 11 from the field, while also logging 41 plus minutes. Off the bench, Robinson Earl had 5 points, and the team was 34 of 75 from the field, which is 45.3%, 8 of 25 from downtown uh, at 32%, and the team finished 25 of 34 from the line with 73.5%, 49 rebounds compared to 42 rebounds from the Houston Rockets. Uh, Ultimately, looking at the stats, I see kind of two glaring issues here. First off, the free throw numbers 25 of 34 at a 73.5% clip there. In close games, that's just not going to do it, especially when your two main guys both missed three free throws. Uh, and that's a big issue. And also, we creeped up with 18 turnovers again last night. And in close games, those are kind of the two biggest factors, especially in the NBA. If you can't convert from that charity stripe and you're throwing the ball all over the place, it usually results in a loss.
Yeah, that's a good point. Certainly two areas of focus to dial in and spend a little bit of time looking at and seeing what the ramifications of um, those areas of the game were for sure. Um, I do think though that this is a game that is a little more than stats, right? I know each game's a little different, and some games paint a better picture in regards to stats, and some differ. This is one where I would say would differ. Um, First, I think let me preface this with, Houston's a pretty good team. They've certainly been trending in the right direction. I believe with that win last night, they've won five straight. Have top 10 numbers offensively and defensively. Um, it's a team that's playing really good ball. They're playing inspired, on both ends, especially with that new coaching staff led by Ime Udoka coming into place and really kind of rebuilding the culture there and setting a new precedent of how they're going to play. One thing I can really appreciate, especially from a team like the Rockets, is that front office certainly could have sat on their hands last year and um, kind of just kept the same core of guys and just kind of fell in love with that natural progression that every team seeks. When you have a younger roster and let them, kind of figure it out themselves and just see who rises to the top and who, crumbles, and allow that to kind of be the way that, or what drives, right, the decisions moving forward. But they really did, the opposite of that. They saw that they had two or three guys that they were really high on, guys such as Jalen Green, um, Alfred Sengun and Smith there on the wing. So it looks like those three are the core three young guys. And then they went out and found pieces that fit alongside of them, seamlessly, and Fred Van Fleet and, although I hate to say it, Dylan Brooks, right? Dylan brought that nasty attitude, that tough, defensive minded guy, to the locker room and to the, rotation. And then Fred obviously is, um, he distributes, he can score, but he's also kind of like that calming factor, especially towards the end of games that you saw that they got the ball in his hand for the last, 4 or 5 minutes of that game, and he really dictated pace and tempo. And ultimately, that's something that we did not have, right? We struggled to deal with their, pressure, and we were delayed in getting into a lot of our sets, which caused a lot of turnovers and, low percentage shots. So, just wanted to preface that with I was impressed with that Houston Rockets team. Certainly, every loss is one that you're not in love with, but that's a team that's trending in the right direction, is playing the right way, and is built to give the Pelicans certainly some issues on a night-to-night basis.
No doubt about that, Pat. Kind of like what I saw from that game is, you know, towards the end of that game, I would say the Pelicans played pretty good for about 44 minutes of that game. And then when there was about 4 minutes left, you truly saw that toughness from, Dylan Brooks, Fred Van Fleet, Jeff Green even got in there and uh, was throwing his weight around and making stuff difficult. So, you got to give them credit where credit is due. Um, 44 minutes we played pretty good, and then that last 4 minutes you kind of saw those veterans just take control, make the big shots, be tough on defense. Uh, we're more scrappy, and that's just kind of how some of those games end up being. And it's really unfortunate because they are a younger team and just have a couple veterans alongside them. But I really wish to see our group, get a little bit more toughness. And I think you saw in spurts that you would see when things may have been going bad, and you saw Jonas getting into it a little bit, and Dyson was being strong, and a couple different people. So I think it's in there for the team to be tough and everything like that. I just think we just got to keep building on these games, game in and game out. But you just got to clean up a few turnovers here and there, and then just make those free throws, like we've said in previous podcasts. Because at the end of the day, a lot of games are going to be close, and those are the things that are going to do it for you.
Yeah, let me ask you. I mean, based on that feedback, I mean, who are guys, in the rotation right now for New Orleans that you kind of see have the criteria to provide that, you know, I don't want to say veteran leadership, but maybe that composure and that poise coming down the stretch. I mean, who is it that you think is willing and able to ultimately fulfill that role? Because, maybe we have a difference of opinion, but, um, I certainly don't see a lot of candidates that aren't only not willing potentially, but really don't have the resume nor experience to really lean on.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answers that you hope would be Bi and Zion, and it's tough because you truly see in games like that how much you truly miss CJ McCollum on a night to night basis. It's just with those little things. By the last 4 minutes of the game, we couldn't really get into a set. And, unfortunate for Dyson Daniels, who was having to handle the ball majority of last night, did a pretty dang good job. It's just he hasn't been in that situation, all too often in his early career. So just having that steady, fast CJ McCollum out there who can get you into a set and get people to where they need to be. Uh, that last 4 minutes, there just wasn't. It seemed like a guy who just said, "Hey, this is what we need to do, and this is how we need to do it," which is very unfortunate because by now, I think Bi and Zion should be those guys that are willing to step up and can, you know, make sure that these games don't get out of hand, because with about 5 minutes left, you're up seven. You should be able to pull that win out, and you see that a younger team with Houston go on a 16-6 run. So it's very alarming that you don't have anybody that has stepped up into that role with the absence of CJ being out.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. Uh, I also think that maybe with a situation like that, and obviously the logical answer that a lot of people, including yourself, for a lot of really good reasons, would turn to CJ, right? But I think we also can't have revisionist, history when looking back at this. There were a number of times last year, right, when CJ was playing, um, and he didn't illustrate, for the team that he was a high quality ball handler and decision maker, especially late games. That's kind of why we went away from CJ and we kind of got the ball into Bi's hands, later in that year, just because we were having issues with CJ, taking on that responsibility. Now, my hope is that obviously, this is a new year, a new system. Maybe it fits him better, and maybe he's continued to grow as a primary ball handler and decision maker. But um, I think it's an important thing to keep in the back of our mind that we can't just only take it at face value for C.J. McCollum, the name C.J. McCollum, the experience, the number of years in the league. He's also illustrated weaknesses in that area for sure. So um, this is an area that we've been struggling with for at least 2 years. Maybe even creeping into 3 years, but. Um, it looked like there certainly wasn't a lack of want to from Brandon and Zion. I didn't see either one of them shy away from wanting the ball or doing that, which is a positive start. But I think both of them were very poor in their execution for different reasons. Um, and we can get into that if you want to speak a little more detailed on those actual possessions coming down the stretch. But I also think that we need to do a better job of, especially knowing the situation that those guys are in. Neither one of them having a ton of experience. For different reasons, whether that's injuries or just not being in a lot of big time close games. Towards the end of the year, you don't really have a chance to learn from that. But um, I would really like to see the coaching staff maybe become a little more hands on, down the stretches of these games. It seemed like there for five, six possessions in a row, we just kept going back to the same. It wasn't even the same play. It was like you had mentioned. It's the same just motion. It's the same look. Essentially, that we're just kind of essentially dribbling the ball up and really not even at an effective pace. We're kind of getting into everything late, but we're just running a simple, flex or UCLA cut across the top of the key and pretty much, kicking it over to either Zion or Brandon and pretty much having them go, either one on one or, a 1-5 pick and roll, which, I mean, it was a lot of standing and watching. And, I think regardless of who you want to go to in that situation, I'm fine with either one of them. And I think everything should be matchup dependent. And maybe you pick your spots a little better up and down the floor each possession. But, I don't want to just see for 5 minutes straight coming down the stretch in the fourth quarter. We're just going to put a guy at the top of the key and let him just go one on one. Especially, I mean, as much as you can hate the guy, I mean, Dylan Brooks isn't an effective defender, right? He's a physical guy. He's strong, moves his feet. He knows how to play off the refs. So it's not the easiest matchup. But if we are going to go to those guys, let's get Zion. Maybe clearing out a side, going a little bit more. Um, Not so much 1-4 flat, right? Let's just get him on a side, maybe with a shooter, and have him deal with a little less. And then Brandon, let's get him in that mid post, pinch post area where he's not having to catch that thing at 30 feet and take 3-4 dribbles to get to the rim and make a play over a bunch of guys or contend with getting around pesky defenders that are picking at the ball. So I think we just need to take a little bit of pressure off those guys because unfortunately with CJ down, this is going to be the new norm for a while until we, are able to get the rest of the guys back and healthy. But I think the coaching staff should take it upon themselves to, really become more hands on and really put them in a position where, you know, it just has a little bit more flow and rhythm, and we're not getting down to the late shot clocks, under 10, and having to scramble to even get a look up.
Yeah, and I mean, what do you feel about Dyson Daniels being put into that position to handle the ball late, or would you like to see like a Brandon or Zion at least? Maybe that deters from Dylan Brooks being so handsy with those guys because they'll be coming off of screens where Dyson's basically waiting for those guys to get open, and that's where you saw maybe a couple turnovers come up late where maybe if you do give Brandon or Zion the ball just coming up the floor, it makes it a little more difficult for Dylan Brooks to be handsy and stuff. Yeah, he can still be up in their space, but I mean, me personally, I like that look a little better, and then trying to work off of that. But I mean, to teach their own. What do you kind of like to see in those situations?
Yeah, I think Dyson was good. Obviously, his margin of error is a lot smaller than the other two's. Um, like you said, yes, it does present it's some advantageous situations where you are able to get um, Brandon Zion on different areas of the floor and not having so much pressure to contend with. But I also saw a lot of issues, not just when either one of them are handling the ball. I saw issues getting them the ball off of a primary. Um, either it was a pin down or like we said, a UCLA cut. Like we were struggling to get them the ball from Dyson. So I mean, I don't think it's as cookie cutter just to say, oh, let's just get Dyson the ball and then we're fine. I mean, that's a lot of pressure on him. You're asking him to do a whole lot, which he did really well. He handled what was thrown at him um, with a lot of success and did a good job. And I don't think you can really harp on anything he produced. I think it's just the case that this team has to fight through, and I can assure you that other teams are going to see that tape and they're going to mimic the same type of thing. So it's only going to get harder from here. But um, especially games like this, you can really feel that you don't have a true point guard on the roster, right? It's one thing to do it in spurts or possession to possession, but to have to roll, your two forwards essentially to take on that responsibility all the time. That's a tough place to live, and then especially heavily relying on a guy like Dyson. I know a couple games back we saw there were some good runs and some good stints where Herb was initiating the offense, which is good because it gets him from just a stand in the corner, catch and shoot guy where they're kind of helping off him. Obviously, if he's handling the ball and distributing, um, they're going to have to be more engaged guarding him, just as respecting a ball handler. So my hope is we can hopefully get her back here shortly. I think that's the most realistic, um, first man up that could really provide some additional support there is bringing a guy like her back into the lineup, especially late games, and having him initiate.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. Anytime you can get her back into the lineup, that's going to help you defensively. But like you said, with more of a role of him handling the ball to take a little pressure off of those other guys. Um, just to kind of piggyback off of that fourth quarter, I mean, it's hard to believe that Jordan Hawkins or Dyson Daniels didn't even attempt a field goal that whole quarter, and they basically both played the whole duration. So that kind of just tells you right there that the ball may have been sticking a little bit, but at the same time, you were getting some shots from your main guys, uh, getting to their spots. It just wasn't converting late for us.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 12-minute quarter. I mean, unfortunately, 4 or 5 of those minutes, I don't think anybody was getting any shots. We were
Yeah.
struggling to even, get the ball and turn and face the rim, let alone get them touches. We were playing a lot of east and west instead of north and south. We were playing sideline to sideline, and we weren't able to even get close to getting inside the perimeter and putting pressure on the rim. So, um, it's unfortunate that they lost, but I think you saw it, right? You saw what that looks like, and you experienced that, and obviously that one's going to sting. But I think, you know, learn from it, but you got to flush it, right? There was a lot of good things that came from it. I think we saw a lot of good spurts. Like I said, that's a good team over there, but we just got to take it on ourselves, and that's why I said the coaching staff's got to take some responsibility for that as well, right? We've got to put these guys, this is the new reality right now until we get some other guys back and can distribute the responsibility across a couple of them. We've got to really cover up for any of those weaknesses, and maybe those weaknesses over the time, right, they start to dissipate and they get more comfortable, and it doesn't become as much of an issue. But over the next couple games, if we're in those positions again, I think the biggest thing is just really putting them in a position to succeed, and not really exposing, some areas of weakness.
Yeah, totally agree on that one. And something I did like to see is kind of that start from the Pelicans, and especially from their main three guys who were out there last night with Bi, Zion, and Valanciunas. I think this was truly the first game where you saw Zion be really aggressive from the jump, and you saw that he ended up with 14 points in the first quarter. Bi had 8, and Jonas had 7, and they shot combined 11 of 13 from the field. And, that's a really good sign. But then you kind of saw as the game went on, I don't know if Zion was tired or whatnot, but it just seemed like it just wasn't as impactful those next couple quarters, which, that stuff happens from game to game and everything like that. Brennan started to get it going, different parts of the game as well. So that was just one really bright spot that I saw was just all three of them being aggressive and trying to get to their spots and get to the free throw line because ultimately I think everyone's best game, Bi and Zion included, is when they get north of 5 to 10 free throws a night. That's only going to help them with their scoring and get a little confidence by hopefully seeing that ball go through early.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think it was a strong game. I'm not gonna. It's too early for me to say anything about JV. You know where I stand with JV. For whatever value he might have provided offensively, a possession here or there, he also had a lot of big time mistakes coming down the stretch there. That whether it was some offensive fouls, some poor screens, some just bad decisions, right, on his behalf. So um, understood that, yeah, JB did provide some offensive support, but at the same time, I can't move off of the things that I've been stating, right? I mean, it's just, I mean, love the guy, but I mean, he's just not providing a lot of positive minutes right now. Um, a lot of the time that we're struggling as a group is stemming from him. We've gone into greater detail, and we'll leave that in those different videos. Might have a chance to speak more about it. After some coming games, but segueing from him, yeah, I was really happy with Zion's first quarter. He was very aggressive. He did look like he had a little bit more fuel in the tank, and maybe that was after getting some extended rest after missing that last game. Right, he probably got off his feet for a day or so. Probably was feeling pretty good physically coming into that game. Um, really liked everything I saw from him. He even looked a touch more engaged defensively, not in terms of um, rotation wise, but you could see he was a little bit more aggressive in trying to, deflect some passes, or block a shot or contest a shot around the rim. But really, a lot of it, I think he was fine offensively coming down in that second half. Like you said, he was letting Bi play a little bit. I see he kind of got it going there for a couple minutes stretch, but I think Zion was good offensively. I think the biggest thing, I think it stems back to the coaching stuff. I mean, I don't care who you are. If you give a team a steady diet of the same sets and same looks and same actions for 2.5 quarters, like, especially a team coached by Ime Udoka, a defensive oriented guy who's not going to allow a guy to really get off and continue going to the well with the same thing. I didn't see any change in that second half. I didn't see any other creative ways of getting him the ball in places that he's effective, and um, ultimately allowing him to kind of continue that hot hand. I saw we just pretty much said, hey, we're gonna do the same thing. They've adjusted to it, so let's go do something else. So I think that's an area that needs to be improved, and was certainly an opportunity that was lost there with Zion's early hot hand.
Yeah, and I'll just let you speak on Bi tonight. And did you see something different from him tonight? I mean, it seems like he's gotten into a little bit better of a rhythm the last couple games. Seems to be getting to his spots, and rising over people. And then you saw he took 11 3 pointers tonight. Were you okay with that? Did you just like to see the volume of it, and he still had confidence shooting it late by hitting those two late threes? So just speak on that and kind of what you saw from him, or what you liked or didn't like that.
Yeah, it feels like there's been a microscope on his game probably the last 3 or 4, especially with Zion and CJ being out. So obviously everybody was looking at his game and providing a lot of feedback on the way that he's been playing. None of my what's the right word for it? None of my perception of how he's playing or um, you know critiques of how he's playing is going to be stemming from the fact of how many shots he hits. I I don't really care about that. I know he's an efficient player. It seems like he's one of these guys, and we've talked about it. He might start 1 for 5, but the next thing you know, you look up, he's 4 for 8. Right? He does a really good job of kind of getting back to that, um, 48 to 50% shooting percentage. Um, so really, never ever a concern with his efficiency or if he's going to get back into a rhythm within these games. But the biggest thing that I use, especially lately, to really judge the way he's playing and the way that he's attacking defenses is that shot profile. Um, I think tonight was his best shot profile in terms of where he was getting shots, where he was manufacturing offense, and just his focus on kind of switching that up. I mean, really the last couple games before that, when people were saying that he was struggling, and that was kind of the consensus. He went away from Brandon Ingram, the 3 level scorer. He turned into Brandon Ingram, the 1 level scorer. And maybe some of that was, like we said, coming off of injury, trying to find some rhythm. Him kind of focusing his efforts and his shot attempts on something that he feels the most confidence in, which is that, 18 to 20 foot mid range shot. But tonight he had a lot of really good drives to the basket. I actually wish he would do it more often. Um, I don't know if you have the number in front of you, but I believe I saw a statistic that so far this year, inside 6 feet, he's 15 of 20 for 75%. So he's doing a really good job of finishing around traffic and getting to the rim and, finishing some of those tougher layups and finishes. So obviously, when he's, putting his head down and not only, converting at a high level, but he's drawing some fouls, getting himself to the free throw line. He's doing a better job of helping the team get into the bonus quicker. So obviously that's a positive and is advantageous for the rest of the group. But also, like you touched on, 3 point attempts. I don't. I think, what is the number? Do you have it in front of you? What he is for the from the 3 point line this season by chance?
6 of 30.
Yeah, so he's 6 of 30. I couldn't care less if he was 6 of 30 or if he was 15 of 30. Uh, he's not a guy to me that his makes and his misses make a massive difference in terms of the way that people are covering him. I think that he just needs to do, um, you know, a good job each night of penciling in, hey, it doesn't need to be 11, but it needs to be 5 or 6. Because I know he's very capable of having games where he shoots 4 of 6 from three. And yeah, he'll have a game where he's 0 of 6 or 1 of 6, and that's fine because it keeps, the defense honest. It buys him an extra step when going to the rim, and it also, it buys everybody else. I think we saw possession late, especially I think the one you were referring to that with about 5 minutes left, or it might have been a touch earlier, but they pushed it to 7 after that BI three in the corner coming off of the drive by Zion. Um, Zion was able to manufacture that shot by BI by his ability to get downhill and put pressure on the rim, but vice versa as Brandon continues to shoot more and more at a higher clip, especially with a lot of volume and starts making those, that guy's going to have to play one step over, and that's a lot of extra finishes around the rim and getting to the free throw line for Zion. So that's a way that Brandon can, help Zion and not actively, play with Zion, but the way that he's navigating his game and how he's shooting shots throughout the game, he's helping Zion, right? So I thought in terms of that, outside of the last 4 minutes, which I mean, we're really not going to harp or speak much on about Zion or Brandon. I think the consensus would be neither one of them handled it great. Um, I'm sure they'll be the first one to say that they need to do better and be more effective down the stretch there. But outside of that, I thought he played really good. He seemed to be, he looked a little more active physically, right? I saw him go after a couple extra longer rebounds. I saw him contest a shot or two around the rim and either block it or just graze it and catch a piece, which, eventually, I think both of them we actually got stops on. So I think all in all, this was the best looking Brandon we've seen this year. And again, that is solely just on the way that his shot profile and that shot diet of his is looking rather than being really focused on just, really bailing the defense out every single possession because I mean, he is a fantastic mid-range shooter. He's one of the best percentage-wise shooters in the league from there. But he's got to realize, when he's 6'9" coming downhill and he's long, it it's puts a lot of pressure on these teams' defense. And although he is great at shooting those mid-range, sometimes him bailing out for that is giving the defense a break. So I was happy to see him really kind of revert back to that three-level scorer profile.
I couldn't agree more with that. And just kind of like you were saying, I think the more he can get downhill and get to that rim, creates more opportunities for him to get to the line, which ultimately I think that's the biggest thing with any player's game is the more they get to the line, the more they can get an easy bucket here or there and see the ball go through. That confidence definitely rises. I mean, and he should be taking advantage of any time he can get to the rim. He's put on some strength. He's long. He's been shooting at a high clip. Once he gets into the painted area. So I mean, I think it's only positive the more he does that, and then slowly work his way out to that mid range shot and that three. And I think you'll see the percentages go even higher than they are right now.
Yeah, I think that's a key for him. I think everything stems from just, um, that field goal chart at the end of the game. If you see everything bunched up in one area, that probably spells for a game that he wasn't as engaged as he possibly could be. He still might have a nice night, but that's where you see the difference. The nights that Brandon has 22 to 24, and it feels like he's made a lot of shots. Those are the games that he's having to work for it a lot and hit a lot of tough contested shots, which he does a really good job of. Um, but I think it makes it easier on him when he's shooting shots from all three levels, and especially that's where you saw a jump like tonight, where instead of 23, 24, he was able to eclipse 30 and end up with I believe it was 31. So, he should totally lean into it. Again, not saying that he needs to become a incredibly high volume 3 point shooter, but there's absolutely no reason we can't get him 5 to 6 good looks a night from behind the arc. Um, as well as he's going to have to make some of these defenses pay for going under screens and trying to catch him on the bottom side to, cut him off on any of those mid range shots. So, um, positive sign, step in the right direction. Like you said, hope things just continue to kind of grow from here and we can kind of see him ramp up and really hit his stride.
No doubt about it, Pat. And pretty crucial early stretch of the season here coming up with six home games in a row, all against really good teams. A couple mid-season tournament games as well. So it'll be crucial to hopefully get a couple guys back here in the next week or two, and hopefully defend our home court and get back to our crowd and try to find some momentum in this next 6 to 10 games.
Yeah, this is going to be a gauntlet for sure. This is going to be a game that they're going to be tested every single night by their team's lead guards and their secondary stars. I know we've got Dallas who's playing at a very high level right now. Luka and Kyrie are playing very well. I'm eager to see what adjustments we make. I think this is going to be a 6 game stretch where if it were me making the decisions, I think you're going to see substantial decrease in minutes for JV. I just don't see a lot of opportunity on a night to night basis that he's going to be able to provide. A lot of positives for this group just in terms of how many pick and rolls he's going to be put in. Um, and I know a lot of the thinking will be, well, Dallas is pretty small. They have a thin front line. Lively's a rookie. Maybe, you know, punish him offensively. Well, yeah, I get it, but every single time you do that, you're trading twos and threes on the other end. So um, ultimately, I think that that's a game where JV is going to be very limited. We're going to have to rely on um, Larry's going to have to play some more extended minutes, and I think you're going to have to see Zion take it upon himself to really step into that five spot because um, I think Dallas will have a hard time, playing and keeping Zion out of the paint, especially, Luca and Zion, or I mean, sorry, excuse me, Luca and Kyrie are not the best defenders there on the perimeter. I think we're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on the rim, but it's just are we able to play through some contact and finish over some of the length that Lively certainly presents there. But I think this is a game that both Zion and Brandon should, and if they are focused, should be able to get to the rim really at will and hopefully make that Dallas team pay.
Definitely, and especially you have Dallas 2 games in a row, so hopefully you can learn what you got in tomorrow's game, and then come back Tuesday for your in-season tournament game, especially too, and try to pick up 2 wins against the Mavericks here.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying there. It's a big opportunity. Same team back to back. That can be a gift and a curse. But if you find something that is working and is effective, and you can make them pay for some of their deficiencies, having a quick turnaround and hopefully being able to steal two at home would be a really positive step in the right direction.
Couldn't agree more, Pat. That's all I got here. If you're done, then we can probably sign off, and then we'll be at it again tomorrow, like we said, with the Dallas Mavericks.
Yep, sounds good. Looking forward to seeing the guys and what tweaks and adjustments have been made. And most importantly, looking forward to hopping back on here and speaking to you about what we've seen and talk about hopefully the continued growth of the group.
Yes, sir, Pat. Excited about tomorrow, and we'll hop on afterwards.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.